I'm pleased to introduce our first speaker. Sindolo Dimana is our first speaker for today. I'm going to read his bio. He is the co-director of the Carolina Federation, where he builds governing power with working people and communities of color in North Carolina. A seasoned strategist with over 15 years of experience in organizing and elected leadership, Sindolo has also shaped leadership development nationally through somatics-based training. Please give it up for Sindolo Dimana.
So first, I want to thank Shayanti Singleton, who is from the Cypress Fund and is a fierce advocate for organizers in North and South Carolina. She gave me the invitation here for this talk. And I also want to thank Joyce McDonough in the back, who has been incredibly patient and gracious with me as I've been not responding to any of her emails, and put together the description for me, even though I just gave the title for this talk. And I want to thank Shandor in the back as well, who was my tech person yesterday during the panel and now. And I wanted to start with those recognitions because, I was asked to talk about democracy and asked to talk about organizing. And at the center of all of that is people. And when I first got the invitation to do this talk, I didn't say yes because I was sure I had something to say. I said yes, honestly, because I was afraid of missing an opportunity to raise money. And behind that was really a sense of constant fear and scarcity that there are not the resources in order to do the work of liberation for our people. That if I didn't take every single moment, every single opportunity, whether or not I knew what to do or not, that I might miss the essential thing that would make the difference for our people. And with that kind of fear-based mentality, I kind of came here yesterday with this imagination that I was going to be talking to people who were not like me. That I needed to make a pitch to a bunch of people who had access to money, unlike me. That y'all were not organizers, y'all weren't freedom fighters, that was me, and I would need to translate that to a set of folks who didn't understand what I was talking about. And then some small miracles happened yesterday as I was here. One, I was on a panel up here with Kelly Morales from Siembra NC, and she was telling the story about their organization, which I know. But I heard her say it again, that they won $250,000 in the first few months of this year while also fighting against their people being kidnapped. And I was amazed again in that moment. And then a sister in the back raised the question after I got very righteous about metrics and frustrations with funding reports. And she asked, okay, so what are some models for how I can take this to my board? And in that moment, something started changing for me, and I wasn't sure what it was. And I went to the Whole Foods later, and I ran into Sandra. I don't know if she's in here, but I ran into this woman who was like, "Oh, great talk." And when I spoke with her, she also talked about the challenges she had with her board, and was talking about, well, I try to use these metrics in order to bring these people along, and I'm not really sure how would I have an organizing conversation with these folks. And it really landed then in that moment that I was like, I'm not translating to a different group of people who aren't me. We are actually all in this moment together in different positions with different access and different resources. And in fact, the resource that's most essential includes money, but first and foremost is actually where do we draw the clarity, the hope, and the connection that makes it possible to access and use all of our resources when we are trying to navigate and transform institutions that themselves are struggling in a context of catastrophe. That's the real question. There's Sandra in the back. Hi. That's the real question. And that really helped me. Last night, I went to bed in a different question about what I wanted to share, and I woke up this morning thinking about Sandra's question about her board, thinking about what it means for me to lead an institution, the Carolina Federation, in this moment. And so what I want to share with y'all this morning isn't from the position of a grantee to folks who do grant making. What I want to share with y'all this morning is as the inheritor of a legacy of unbroken hope to people who are here because you too are inheritors of some legacy of hope, some legacy of survival. Anyone who is here on this land made it here across oceans, or made it here in the face of genocide, or made it here through slavery and Jim Crow. And what I hope to do here in this conversation is connect my freedom tradition to yours. And my hope is that, one, we'll get some faith and some spirit moving around that so you have some resources when you leave. And two, that I can share some of the practical, hands-on pieces about how that tradition has taken shape here in North Carolina and through the Carolina Federation. Y'all with me? Okay. So, democracy. One dominant way that democracy is thought of in this country comes from the liberal tradition. And it fundamentally sees democracy as a set of institutional arrangements that need to be protected. And I believe that those institutional arrangements, rules of law, constitutional rights, are absolutely essential. And I do not believe that they are the heart and soul of democracy. I believe that the heart and soul of democracy are practices of faith, deep faith, and the great capacity of everyday people to do extraordinary things. The practice of democracy includes the skillful mastery of wielding power for all of us. And the combination of those two things, the deep love and faith in people, and the skillfulness and unafraid courage of seizing and wielding power, those two things together, I believe, are at the heart of democracy and at the heart of what organizing is really about. Over a decade ago in North Carolina, the right wing took over our state. They were very clear about the question of power. They are not clear about the greatness of everyday people. They believe that if they can seize and change the institutional arrangements of this state and this country, that they can wipe out the greatness of everyday people. That they can keep all of us under their heel and continue to extract day after day from the planet and from the people of this state. And for a decade, they've been up to that. They've been doing it. And we have fought against constantly remade maps in order to undermine all of our organizing attempts. We have fought against their terrorizing of trans people. The bathroom law is not about safety. It is about terrorizing and frightening people. We have fought against ICE raids. We have fought against attacks on public education. And at the heart of that have been people who have said, even if the current institutional arrangements are all the way against us, we believe that everyday people coming together and unleashing their full capacity is what can change that. And over the past 6 years, the Carolina Federation and our sister organizations have built the largest voter contact operation that this state has ever seen. Last year, in 2024, we ran a program that was 4 times the size of the program that we ran in 2020. 4 times the size. I'm gonna get my little statistics over here. There are over 24 organizations who did this, and we talked to 1.2 million people. And I really want you to feel not, I can tell you the door numbers. The door numbers, there are 4.6 million doors. But when we say that, doors don't fucking vote. Doors don't change history. Human beings do. And when we say we ran the largest voter contact program, what we're really saying is we ran the biggest program to touch and evoke hope that has ever happened in this state. 1.2 million people had someone come face to face with them and say, what do you want for the future of this state, for your family, for this community? And we built that with people who had dedicated their lives to making a difference. People like Ashley Evans, who used to work for Fieldworks and experienced knocking on doors and having conversations as an extractive process where poor black people are hired for a temporary period of time and asked to harvest votes, not harvest illegally, but asked to get people of color to vote. And when Ashley Evans came to work for us, she said, I want to build a canvassing program that is a leadership development program for working class black people, to do political education, to put people on a career pathway to say, I am not just someone who gets hired to say what somebody else says. I inform the script. I come back at the end of the day and I say, this is what's happening in our community. We need to change the way we're talking about this. And how is that going to inform our issue agenda? And because Ashley Evans took that approach, she developed a set of office directors in Durham, in Charlotte, in Greensboro, who themselves said, I want to invest in the canvassers. And because of that, we had a brother, Brandon Young, who is born and raised Durham, North Carolina, Bull City, y'all. And Brandon had worked with us in 2022. Left his permanent job to come work for the Carolina Federation in Durham. Did so well, got promoted into lead canvasser. Then we could not find an office director in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Month after month, we couldn't find somebody to do it. He said, I'm going to move to Fayetteville, North Carolina, because I believe that defeating Mark Robinson in this state is essential to the future of my children. Because I have felt my own leadership and capacity, my own greatness, the possibility of me living into my fullness through this work. Not just a job, y'all. Not just a campaign. An opportunity to unleash the full potential of our people. And so he moved to Fayetteville, and he had to talk about that with his girlfriend and was like, how are we going to do childcare? What's that going to look like? These are the kinds of choices that everyday people make in order to transform our state. And because of that, we beat Mark Robinson. Because of that, we won the state Supreme Court seat. And after we won, this fool Jefferson Griffin decided he didn't like the rules. After they had already rigged the rules for decades, and after everyday people figured out how to overcome the rigged rules, then he said, hey, y'all, let's change them again on the backside. Let me tell you what we did. Ashley Evans, Brandon Young, Shaquita Ross, so many people in our organization showed out. We did ballot cure, first step, and let me look at these numbers again. That race was won by 734 votes. We cured 837 ballots. And that ballot cure project wasn't just the Carolina Federation. We worked with Down Home, North Carolina. We worked with the Democratic Party. We worked with anybody who would come together. And folks, mostly volunteers, went door to door, tracked folks down on Facebook in order to cure those 837 ballots. And Jefferson Griffin decided, well, I lost that again. So let me try something else. And he tried to cancel 65,000 votes. So I want y'all to really feel this. Our people keep keeping faith in the possibility of democracy in this country, not because the institutions are built to help us, but because they believe that coming together could make a difference. And this man and his cronies keep trying to crush that hope. Y'all, I'm happy to tell you that yesterday he lost again. Yesterday he lost again, and a federal court judge said, y'all need to certify this race. It's 6 months after the election. Y'all out here talking about you worried about election integrity. Get it together. Get it together. We know that this will not be the last time that our opposition will attempt to crush our people. We also know that our people have been through so many things, and these fools aren't going to be the first thing to stop us. We're going to keep going, because at the heart of what we do is unleashing people. And once people are unleashed, once people are connected to what's possible, what they stand for, what they believe in, there is nothing that can stop us. So that's the faith part. This practice of being in again and again around what we truly believe, taking risks, making sacrifices, lifting each other up. That's the faith part of democracy. But I also want to leave you with some of the specifics of what made all that possible. So our organization, one of the things that we say is we are a political organization of the multiracial working class. We have a C3, a C4, a PAC, and an LLC. We are not the legal statuses that are vehicles for our work. The way we govern ourselves is not dependent on compliance with the IRS. We are not fundamentally accountable to the IRS. We are fundamentally accountable to working class people. And this is essential because then the structures that we set up are actually part of the political education that our members take on when they are elected into the council, the governing board of our organization. They need to understand that just like the wealthy ruling class people in this country invented corporations, invented LLCs, we need to understand how these vehicles can be of use and how we can redesign them to be in service to our people. And so one of the things that made our victory possible is that we are not a single entity organization. We are not just a C3 group. We have all of these different entities, and I really want to make encouragement to all of y'all to think about the work that you do and how to get access to the set of institutions that you need to do any of the work that you need to do. When our members told us we need to be able to run people for office and we can't just leave them behind once we get them to say that they're going to run, we said, okay, we're going to have to set up a PAC. And in order to have a PAC and a C3 and a C4, we had to set up a for-profit corporation, which is where our staff lives. So this is really, nuts and bolts in the weeds kind of stuff, but I think it's really essential because it means that our people get to wield all forms of power. And what that also means is I had to learn a whole bunch of things about accounting. And, our finance director did not go to school for accounting. Our finance director, Melissa Norton, is a policy person. But when she saw what we were up to, she said, I am willing to commit to figure out how to do this. She spent years with our accountants, with lawyers, figuring out the legal structures that made it possible for us to move in and out of C3 work, in and out of working with the Democratic Party, in and out of express advocacy. And that's what's possible when people deeply believe that what we're building is about the best of who we are. I'm happy to say that Mel also got sabbatical earlier this year, and she is transitioning into a role that is more her ministry. But again and again, we've seen people being willing to make sacrifice when we have this combination of practicing deep faith and having sharp strategy. On the strategy piece, I think the other thing that I want to share is about the kinds of organizations that we believe are essential. And so the Carolina Federation is a state-based organization, and our view is that democracy is going to be rebuilt, reignited in this country by building state-level ecosystems. That so much of our infrastructure has been local or federal, and so little in between. And in this country, the way it was built, unless we capture governance of our states, we will always get preempted from below, and we will never have the power up at the federal level. And what we need aren't one special organization. I'd really appreciate it if you lift up the Carolina Federation, but we can't do it alone. And the reason we were able to win in North Carolina is because over a dozen organizations came together with their unique contributions. The Carolina Federation cannot talk to API voters like North Carolina Asian Americans Together. NCAT is an incredible organization. I can't even remember. There is at least 20 different languages that they communicate with folks in. We do one. And I'm tired. And last year, when they took on the elections in the face of the genocide in Gaza, and their members were wrestling deeply with that question, and some of their funders dropped funding for them, right? We all banded together and said, we need NCAT. We need NCAT. So all the folks who fund us, that fund Down Home, that fund the Carolina Federation, that fund Siembra, y'all also got to fund NCAT. And it's only by building those kinds of ecosystems that can go through the ups and downs, the twists and the turns, that we can really rebuild democracy. Thank you.